In the last section, we saw a few more examples of printing in Ruby. Let's talk a little bit more about this systematically. We've talked about puts, or put string. Yet again, hello world. Now I mentioned briefly before that this is a return value here that means nothing. It's actually a contraction of the Latin word nihil, and indeed it's an English word. Nil just means nothing. So what's going on here is we are calling a function called puts, and we're giving it an argument, which is a string, hello world. That function has as an effect to print out that string. It's called a side effect because the value doesn't actually get returned. It just gets printed out somewhere, in this case, to the screen. Before we saw that when we just type in a string, that the return value is the string itself. Here, the return value is nothing, nil. We also mentioned briefly in the first chapter that Ruby is a little different from most other languages in that it doesn't require parentheses and it doesn't end a line with a semicolon. But you can put parentheses on a function call like this. We'll see lots of examples of this throughout the rest of this tutorial. You can do this. That works just fine. In fact, Ruby even lets you separate different statements, different pieces of code, with a semicolon, so you can make it look like something like JavaScript or PHP or Perl or C, like that. So that actually does work. If you do this here, you can see semicolon. It actually will do exactly the same thing. But the semicolon is really only for separating different statements. We'll see an example of this in the chapter on shell scripting. And these parentheses, in some contexts, are almost always omitted. So you would almost never see puts called with parentheses in idiomatically correct Ruby code. Puts looks like this, just the name of the function and then the string. In the last section, we also briefly saw print, which is very closely related to puts. Do this here. Print does exactly the same thing as puts, except it doesn't put a new line at the end. We can put one in by hand, like that. Now, truth be told, if it had been up to me, I would have reversed these two. I would have said puts literally just puts the string without a new line, and print includes a new line. I feel like print hello world is a nicer hello world. That's what it is in some other languages, for example, in Python. But to be fair, puts is shorter by one letter. And in any case, that's the choice that Matt made. Printing is a very common operation in computer programming, so we'll have lots of opportunities to see this in a variety of different contexts throughout the rest of this tutorial.